So I have Chris here in Chicago with me because we're both kind of GM right now. It's a weird time.
Yeah.
But we happen to both be in the same room, which is great because we've got the summit going on. We've got a dinner this evening. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I wanted to be like, okay, if I don't take this opportunity to make some content, I'm going to miss out on that.
100%.
But I think people want to know, like, we talked a lot about the transition of the role, what's happened with PreSales over the past, or the PreSales Collective over the past 18 months or so. But we barely talked about kind of what you're going to be moving into within the PreSales Collective, the board that's being built.
Right.
I'm sure people kind of want to know, well, what's that board going to be doing, and why a board and why now?
Yeah. So PreSales. So I'll bring it back like a little history first. So PreSales Collective has had basically 3 or 4 different steering committees over time. There was one for the leadership collective. There was one for the overall collective. And then there's one for the enablement organization. And I found that a lot of the time when I was creating content, like summits, like the executive summit we're running now, I didn't have the best support when I felt like I was making up a lot of the decisions myself, and I felt like I was doing it in a vacuum. And I wanted to build a board of people that could ensure that we're at the tip of the spear, that we're actually... that's pushing us at PreSales Collective to be as forward-thinking as possible on what's happening in the field. And so I felt that we just needed a steering committee to meet on a quarterly basis to do things like design content, topics. AI in PreSales is really big right now. Are we missing anything?
Right.
Plus, just get a view from an outside organizational perspective on where we could be better. So often I would find this data by doing one-on-one conversations, but it's just wasn't enough. It's sporadic. It didn't feel like organized. It didn't feel like people had roles and responsibilities in that way. And so me and a handful of other individuals who have a lot of experience in this can help drive PreSales Collective, help you when it comes to hey, I'm creating events. Let's make sure we're talking about the hottest thing.
Right.
So it's, in some ways, it's for accountability for PreSales Collective to continue to further the profession.
Yeah. No, I love that, because one of the things I was a little bit worried about coming into the role was, well, I was currently a pre-sales leader, but as soon as I step into this role, I'm no longer technically doing that. And I'll be talking to a lot of leaders, of course, but how do I make sure I'm staying content with what they care about? So this is a beautiful way, I think, to do that. So make sure that what's being presented to the community is good, the opportunities for the community to get involved are good. So I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I ran into that exact thing. So I was no longer running a pre-sales team, but what I was doing is now I've got this huge amount of people that I can pull from and talk to and understand. And I love the concept of what good looks like somewhere.
Yeah.
And what does good look like in this pre-sales team at this stage at this company is totally different than this company over here.
Yeah.
What I found was we were hyper-focused on certain stages and certain industries, and we were missing a big chunk of pre-sales leadership and pre-sales ICs that were doing things like in hardware. I talked to a leader at Cisco, and he's like, hey, I'm not in B2B tech, we have huge amounts of hardware that we're managing, and there's a totally different level of conversation there. And I wasn't aware of that blind spot. And so we want to basically get ahead of those things.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's I think becoming aware just of the blind spots, aware that there's people that may be missing out. I mean, that's a huge thing. I'm excited for the board.
Obviously, we're friends. We're going to be doing this together. I'm going to be very involved in the community, but that's the focus here, is to make sure that this thing, it's going to live on for many, many, many years, and it should for sure live on through every adjustment we make.
Absolutely. Right? That's what I'm trying to do. I want to set this up so that it's not the Jack show, right? Yeah. It's not me doing something that everyone loves what I do. I want it to be a community that everyone is able to own on their own. It's your community. It's not my community. It's not Chris's community. It's not anybody else's. It's your community. So we're here to make it so it's a place that you want to belong to. And
that's right.
You've done a great job setting that up. I'm excited for you to hop into the board role, to continue the work there. Happy to step in as the GM. So it's going to be a fun next year. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for what's going to come.
Me too. I would love to talk about enablement. One of the things you talked about when we first got on the phone about this role and about general manager and about PreSales Collective, the future of the organization, we talked a lot about enablement. And I want your take on what enablement in general for pre-sales needs, the Unlimited program we've launched, and where you see it going?
Yeah, I mean, it was such a surreal, I do recall that conversation, it was such a surreal moment because I was looking very specifically at what I wanted to do with my career. And I was looking at moving into pre-sales specific enablement, which isn't as big of a space as I want it to be, right? There's a couple companies, I mean, obviously PreSales Collective does things. There's others out there as well who have pre-sales specific enablement, but it's still a very almost niche thing. And most organizations aren't really adopting that as a practice yet.
Right.
But it's so necessary. And I think with the launch of Unlimited, there's an opportunity for organizations to standardize on, you're going to always be learning as a pre-sales person at this organization. You're going to always be up-leveling your game, always have resources to do. And honestly, where I hope it's going is that it's more than just the head of pre-sales who dictates this, pre-sales specific training. I want this to be broader than that.
Yeah.
Where whole sales organizations, or whole customer organizations, post-sales, adopt what we do in pre-sales training as a way of business for everybody.
Right.
Having your account executive and your pre-sales person together with a game plan for how to get a technical win is going to be huge. And what I love about the Unlimited program is that it even is better than a lot of the kind of typical sales trainings that are out there today. Because a lot of those are, everyone goes and you spend 3 or 4 days learning this thing and everyone's getting really fired up about it, and then you go back to your regular day job and you forget about it. And then by the time 2 years have gone by, as sales teams cycle in and out, most of the people working in the organization we're never in the program in the first place.
Right, right.
Unlimited gives you that ability to say, everyone new coming in, you're going to take these 3 courses. These are the 3 that are most important to us. And every person coming in is going to have the same level of training, the same standards that they work off of.
Yeah.
And, we'll be keeping that content fresh. We'll be offering new content. It's a way that we can partner together to make sure that your teams at your company are leveled up and always leveling up and always refreshing. So I'm very excited about that side of the enablement piece. I think it's, when we first talked, I actually didn't know what was going on. And when you had mentioned it, I was like, yes. And then since then it's launched and we're getting good feedback from it, from people in the community who are doing it. So I think it's great. I'm very excited.
It came out of my own pain, honestly, as a pre-sales leader. It was okay. So we would hire people to come to SKO. Mm-hmm. And we were given a little portion of the SKO budget, and we in pre-sales we would do our own thing, right? So we'd go through the sales training, and then we'd go off into our own room and do our thing, right? Which had a lot of product owners would come in and do training, and then we hired a pre-sales trainer to come in, and that was in January. I can guarantee you by July we were not following those rules that we laid down in January.
Someone would ask, "Hey, what about those meeting or customer prep documents we were supposed to be filling out?"
So we went through those processes. We didn't have that. We created a sales enablement council so that pre-sales, this was kind of cool. We created a council for pre-sales engineers, so like ICs that were really passionate about onboarding and enablement, to advise sales enablement on how to train. But what we found was there was no continuous learning path. There was no way for me to keep my senior resources educated. There was no way for me to take those people I was like eyeing in customer success and implementation and SDRs that wanted to get into my team.
Yeah.
I couldn't put them through anything that would really tell them, although you know the technical stuff, there's this thing called discovery, and it's actually very different.
Right.
I didn't have a plan as an organization to run somebody through that process and prep them to get on the team to do their first demo.
Yeah.
So we just took all that learning, and then we interviewed a ton of SE leaders and said, what would you like? Mm-hmm. And they go, okay, continuous learning. And they just named all the things that I named.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, this is perfect.
I mean, I felt the same pain. Yeah. I actually had someone very specifically coming to me and saying, I want to be an SC. They were in post sales.
Yep.
And they knew how to run trainings. And the thought so many people have is, well, I can run trainings, therefore I can be an SC. And it's like, there's so much more.
Yeah.
And even, in fact, if you know how to run trainings, it's actually bad for you to be an SC, as we all know. And I was like, well, I think there's the academy, and this is before Foundations was even in place, and there wasn't really anything good I could point to say, go take that, that will help.
Yeah,
and so
you need to open the eyes, because one thing I say too is you have the curse of knowledge. So I was in post sales before I got into SE world, and I had the curse of knowledge, which was like, I knew how the whole thing worked.
Right.
And so when somebody asked me a question, I showed them how the whole thing worked.
Yes.
The wrong thing to do, right? You don't do that in pre-sales.
Right.
And so I didn't have anybody that opened my eyes and said, no, start with questions and curiosity and do all the right things to tee up your sales conversation. And when you're done, don't say another word.
Yeah.
Right.
Less is more. Yeah.
And so that's where this came from. And now if you're a organization and you have a membership, you can put that individual through any course you want. And you can say, this is actually what this looks like. Is it still interesting to you? First of all, it's a great introduction. But also, I need a plan to upskill my team. Here's the plan.
I love it. You've got a pretty big following on LinkedIn. I've spent some time building kind of my network on LinkedIn as well, creating content.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people who kind of want to do the same, but they don't know where to get started. So how did you get started kind of creating your voice and sharing your story?
The first thing that I would recommend to anybody, and the first thing I did, was turn off that internal demon that says nobody cares about this, or you're not smart enough, or maybe you don't know as much as that other person who has a lot of followers, tens of thousands, and really good viewpoints. So turn that off. That's what I did first. Was okay. I've got to get out of my own shell here and understand that creating on platforms like within PreSales Collective, on LinkedIn, submitting ideas is a way to give back. Absolutely. So what I thought of is I thought of these little problems I was solving, and I thought, okay, if I'm solving them, somebody else has got to solve them, and somebody else is trying to figure it out. Right. And I started looking at it as a way to help people that wanted that help. Yes. So I would say just that mental barrier at first. Every single person in this profession has a unique viewpoint on something that is going to help somebody else. Right. So what I started doing is I just took sort of like topic subjects and subjects underneath them, and started to think about them and think, what's important to discovery for me? I remember one of the first posts I ever did was around curiosity. I have this love with curiosity because I think that curiosity actually, in all areas of life, is a way to be more present, to be more interested in things, to be better with customers, and to be way better in pre-sales. And so I just started talking about how to use your own curiosity into your conversations with prospects, into your conversations with people internally, and just asking a lot of great questions. So I started to share around that one little thing that I thought was interesting, and it started to get traction.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, and you're so right, because I very much remember thinking, I worried, I should say, about people coming back and saying, well, why are you speaking up about this? You don't have the necessary experience. Yeah. Even though, I mean, I've been doing pre-sales for 10 years, and I was having this thought of, well, you don't have enough experience to speak into the pre-sales space because some people have 20 years and 30 years of experience.
That's right. And maybe you're not a senior director, XVP, this or that, with the titles.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt that voice. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. You have something to contribute. And I love that you started posting on curiosity. And I love that idea of take something that you're interested in. Yeah. And post on, because then you're posting on something you're interested in, not necessarily saying I'm the expert on it, just something
you notice. Hey, I've noticed this, that's simple.
Or heck, even something that you do that's worked well for you.
Yeah.
Because all those ideas people will grab and take. Yeah. And I've learned things from people who are just trying to get into pre-sales, about pre-sales.
Totally.
Which is really, so yeah, I love that. Turning off your voice, that's a great way to start. I think for me, I started with something small and something easy, which was actually not even my idea. It was an idea from the Social Sales Engineer by Patrick Pissang. One of the things he says to do to start is go find a quote that you find meaningful.
Okay.
Post the quote. You can make an image out of it or just post the quote, but talk about the thoughts you had around that quote. Just post it.
Interesting.
And it's It was a great way to get started because it was like, yeah, this is a great quote. Here's what I like that quote. And if you have a different thought on that quote, fine. You could post in the comments or ignore me.
Yeah.
But just do that to kind of start to grease the skids.
Yeah, I love that. And one other thing that I did too is I started to go to PreSales Collective events, like virtual events. And I had an idea, so I submitted the idea through the website. So if for people who don't know, one of the hard things to do is, well, one of the things Jack's rebooting here is like, how do you get engaged with PreSales Collective? Because there's so many avenues for it.
Yeah.
On the website, I stumbled across this sort of resources page where I could submit ideas. I submitted an idea for a leadership conference, and I was blown away that it was even chosen, and I was chosen to be a panelist. But what's interesting is now that I'm on the inside, I recognize that anytime people submit ideas to me or say, hey, I'm going to raise my hand, I want to be involved, I'm like, you're in.
Yeah.
And so the funny part is I was submitting it with like a lot of, I don't know if I should be doing this, kind of like reservation. But I didn't realize that on the other end of that, Shauna and James and the team was like excited to get that because they didn't have to find that next person.
Right. Yeah.
So I would encourage everybody, we want you to be a part of this community. We want you to write blogs. We want you to be featured. We want you to do our summits and go to these events. Yeah. You got to reach out and let us know that you're interested.
Absolutely. I mean, the three things I think about for PreSales Collective, one is the enablement side of it, which we've talked about.
Tons of opportunity.
There's the community side, the networking, but also, so it's sort of community, there's the content that's there, but also it's a platform. It's meant to be a platform where you can have a voice because there's not a lot of opportunity other than posting on LinkedIn for you to have that voice in the space. And that's what we should be. We're a community where people want to learn from other people, and if no one's stepping up to say, here's something to learn from, that half the equation isn't there. And you, specifically you listening, you've got an idea. Bring your idea. I'd love to have it. And but still that voice that says you're not worth it and you don't have anything to bring, because I guarantee you do. Yeah. And reach out. We'd love to work with you in some way.
Yeah. And that goes for all areas, the podcast, all the things we publish. I mean, if you come up with a really cool idea, hey, I want to start a coffee shop networking event in Quebec where we focus on XYZ thing. We're here for it.
Great.
We're here. We'll post it up. We'll get people to that event with you.
Yeah.
So the sky is literally the limit. If you want to rent river boats and go look at the Eiffel Tower with PreSales Collective, let Jack know. Yeah. We'll figure out a way to make it work.
I feel like we just need a brainstorming session on crazy ideas. If we're gonna hit, right? Yes. With somebody. Someone wants to do it.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that insight and look forward to hearing all of your ideas soon. Thanks.
Thank you.